Hi, today I'm going to be planting up the milkweed and the blueberry that we got last week in the video from last week. But first I gotta figure out where I'm going to plant them because, again, I have very limited space and I want to save some room to plant some other things as well. So let's figure out where we're going to plant everything and then we'll start planting. I think I want the blueberry here in this spot. I am a little bit worried about the banana trees covering it. As you can see, I did chop the milkweed up a little. It was covered in aphids, which is pretty common for milkweed. They love milkweed, but I didn't want them to infect the rest of the garden, so I just cut a bunch of it off, which a lot of people prune it around this time anyways, so it should be fine. But let's see where we're gonna put it. I could also plant them both here because I think this gets more shade. The only thing that makes it tricky in such a small garden like this is that I do have big things like the bamboo trees and the banana trees, so you have to take into consideration how much those are going to grow, and I don't know how much bigger that will get. But I know that the banana tree will produce a bunch more plants, and then it might shade out the blueberry and the milkweed. Yeah, I think we're gonna put it there because I think they'll get more sun in this spot, and this is actually kind of one of my nicer spots in the garden. The reason I think that is because the pine tree is right over this area, so it's constantly dropping needles, which makes a really nice mulch situation, whereas the other parts of the garden don't get as much needles, just like dispersed evenly on the soil. So I think it's gonna look really good here. All right, I'm gonna move the pine needles out of the way. I really need to get a bigger shovel. This takes forever, but it's all I've got. So that's what I'm using today. And at least I'm not planting something huge, like in a big pot. There's no way. I would just give up. All right. I'm gonna fill the hole with some fertilizer. Add a little bit. That should be good. I did plant this stick. It just looks like a stick. But I did just plant this milkweed a little bit deeper because, well, actually it was an accident, but it doesn't really matter because milkweed loves wet feet. So, well, swamp milkweed loves wet feet. So it's fine for it to be a little bit lower than normal. But normally I wouldn't plant a plant that low in the ground. It doesn't look like much, but hopefully in the springtime it will start growing a lot more and producing some blooms. So stay tuned for spring. All right, moving on to the blueberry. Okay, same thing, I gotta move the pine needles out of the way. Fertilizer in the hole. Woo. Wow. Doesn't really have a lot of strong roots, but luckily this is a native plant, so I think it'll do just fine in the garden. Now we just gotta water them in, and then they are ready. All right, I'm done planting the blueberry and the milkweed, but I have one thing left that I want to do today. It is fall, and it's getting increasingly colder. It's November now, so these jalapenos that I have in the garden probably won't be very happy if I leave them out here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come through and get all of them out and then individually plant them in pots. I'm gonna try to overwinter them inside, and hopefully we'll get jalapenos in the spring. So let's get started. All right, I've got 6 plants. So I'm gonna plant all of them just in these tiny pots. I'm obviously gonna have to replant them into bigger pots as they get bigger, but for now, might as well just put them in tiny pots and see how they do. We're gonna water this in a little bit before I plant the pepper in here to avoid what happened to my big garden bed over there, which I talked about in a different video. I'm gonna give it some fertilizer and water it in, and then I'm gonna just do that to the rest of them. Making like potions. When I was a kid, me and my cousins used to do this. We would have like a little station where we would make like soup and potions and stuff. That's exactly what I feel like right now. So the jalapenos are all potted up. There's actually 6 of them. I think I said 5. I'm pretty sure I counted 5, but apparently there's 6. So I've got 6 jalapeno plants all potted up, ready to go inside, but I'm gonna leave them outside until it gets really cold. We did have a day like a week ago that was in the 30s, like really low 30s, like 32, and it did damage actually one of my other plants, but we don't want these to get damaged. We want these to continue to grow through the winter. Hopefully we'll see if that is even a possibility, and then maybe in the spring at least one of our pepper plants will produce some jalapenos. Alright, that is all for this video. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up. If you have anything to say, put it in the comment section below. But other than that, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.